Alright, hello and welcome to today's video where we're going to be talking about how to accept imperfect safety. And this is one of those super important topics that I think a lot of spiritual teachers and a lot of health and wellness gurus and the self-help industry in general and culture in general is really afraid to talk about and to look at and to acknowledge and to bring to light. And that is why I think we should talk about it here today. Because we live in a world right now where we are, as a collective, still incredibly afraid of admitting to our vulnerability and the existential realities of being alive. And we are not actually developing real tools and real skills to help us navigate that reality. And rather, we are working really, really hard to try to distract ourselves from this reality and to try to create a situation where we are perfectly secure and where everything is perfect and we never have to worry about anything ever again. And this leads to more chaos and more stress and more anxiety than many of us realize it does. And it is this constant kind of hamster wheel of trying to create perfect safety, where perfect safety is never going to exist. And like I said, rather than developing real adult coping strategies for the existential realities of life, we try to ignore it. We try to make it go away. We try to fix it. We try to fix ourselves. We get lost in self-help and lost in spirituality and productivity and all of the things. And this causes us more pain and more chaos and more destruction than it solves. So that is why we need to talk about this. That is why we need to really take a look at a lot of where our habits and patterns actually come from and what we can do to actually support ourselves. Okay? So coming to the very kind of core root foundation. Most of us are trapped in spirals and cycles of never-ending self-improvement, feeling like we're failing, feeling like our lives aren't good enough, feeling like we are never doing good enough, we aren't healing our trauma enough, we're not working the right job, we don't have the right look, we're upset with our bodies, we're scapegoating all of these things in the hopes that if we fix ourselves enough and we change ourselves enough, that we will feel safe and secure. That is why we hate ourselves. That is why we judge ourselves. That is why we continually look out into the world and say, I am not as good as them. I'm not doing what they're doing. I'm not productive enough. I'm not good enough. I'm not lovable enough. I'm not thin enough or pretty enough or young enough or anything enough. We all have our stories of what is wrong with us. That is the reason we are in pain. That is the reason we are not feeling good. Our bad habits, our coping mechanisms, our not being able to set boundaries, our not being able to have healthy relationships, our being too avoidant, our being too attached, our being blah, 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 right? All the things we nitpick about ourselves. If we roll it back and we ask ourselves, why do I feel like that is not okay? Why am I not allowed to be the way that I am? What is wrong with the person that I am? We're going to come down to two things. Number one is we're going to say my habits and my ways of being and the things that I'm doing are causing me pain. And that's bad, and I don't feel good, and that's why I need to fix this thing about myself. And this thing is wrong, and it is bad, and it is shameful that I am doing it, and so I need to fix myself. Or if we really investigate into why we think the things that need to change about us need to change, it's going to come down to, because if I don't change this thing, I'm never going to be loved. I'm always going to be disapproved of. I'm going to be abandoned. People are not going to accept me. If they were to find this out about me, they wouldn't accept me. If I am to stay the way that I am, I'm going to be abandoned. People are going to get tired of me, whatever it is, right? So it's causing me pain, and therefore it's bad. Or it's making it so that other people don't love me, and I'm going to be alone, and therefore it's bad. And so what the real fear is, what the real feeling is whatever it is that we're saying is wrong or bad about us, is the thing we believe is separating us from perfect love and perfect safety. This perfect life where we have all of our needs met, where we're safe, where we're loved, where we're supported by a loving community, where there's no more threat, our bodies are perfect, there's no threat to our financial situation, we have love and connection whenever we want it. That is really what we're going for, right? At the end of the day, we all just want a life that feels safe and connected and secure. That is why we are striving for all the things we're striving for. That is what we believe fundamentally and foundationally is going to happen if we fix ourselves, if we change ourselves, if we become this ideal version of ourselves, if we achieve all the things we need to achieve, if we do all the things we need to do, if we become all the things we need to become. At its root, it's because somewhere inside of ourselves we believe, if and when that happens, I will be safe. I will be secure. All the pain in my life will go away, and I will just feel good all the time. That is what we are striving for. And the reason we all get stuck in self-blame and self-shame is because we're in pain, we feel alone, we feel isolated, we feel insecure, we feel like life isn't safe. And rather than being able to identify that, and then rather than being able to identify what it is that is actually making us feel unsafe and insecure, and then working with our adult capacity to find whatever security we can find, and then to deal with the existential reality of not being secure in some places, we default into the childhood coping mechanism, which is, if I am in pain, if I don't feel good, if life isn't going how I want it to go, if I don't have the connection, I don't have the safety, I don't have the security, I don't have the provision that I want, it's because there's something wrong with me. Because in childhood, that was our one perspective. Caregivers are capable of giving us perfect love, perfect understanding, and then perfect safety. That was our perspective. That caregivers were capable of giving us perfect love, perfect safety, perfect provision, everything in life being how it was supposed to be. And if we weren't experiencing that, our childhood selves then said, the reason I'm not experiencing that is because I am doing something wrong. We could not blame our caregivers. And we could not admit to ourselves as children that our caregivers were not capable of providing perfection for us. We didn't see that. We didn't know that. We couldn't perceive that. Our childhood self could only perceive perfect love, perfect safety exists. And it comes from my caregivers. It comes from my caregivers loving me, approving of me, understanding me, and then giving me the things that I need and taking away the pain that I'm in. That was our perspective. And so anytime they weren't doing that, anytime we were in pain and they weren't saving us, anytime we were in pain and they weren't fixing us, we could only perceive it must be because I am doing something to cause them not to care for me. I am the problem. That is how we perceived it. And sometimes our caregivers reinforced that. Sometimes our caregivers really did blame us and shame us and abandon us and tell us that we were too much and tell us that taking care of us was too hard and reinforce this idea that you are not safe and you are not being taken care of and you are not in a perfect environment because of you. Sometimes our caregivers were just absent and our childhood storytelling brain was filling in the gaps. Sometimes our caregivers were simply incapable. They wanted to provide for us. They wanted to give us the things that we wanted and needed and just couldn't. But it doesn't matter, because from the childhood perspective believed if I could improve myself enough, if I can blame myself enough for my pain, if I can figure out what's wrong with me when I'm suffering and change it, my caregiver will then love me and then they will give me what I need. And then most of us grow up into our adult lives and are totally unconscious of the fact that we are still striving for our caregiver's love and approval all the time. That everything we want to improve about ourselves, everything we want to fix about ourselves, everything we hate about ourselves, all of our coping mechanisms, all of our personality flaws are rooted in this deep belief that if I fix these things, these are the things that are wrong with me. That if I fix them, my caregiver will finally love me. My caregiver will finally see me. And then they are going to provide for me all of those things they never provided for me. And they're going to take away all the things that they never took away. And we have a really hard time accepting that maybe our caregivers are just flawed. Maybe our caregivers are incapable. Maybe a lot of our patterns, our interpersonal patterns, our coping mechanisms, the things we're not able to do in life that we really want to be able to do, come from the fact that our caregivers failed us. Come from the fact that our caregivers didn't give us what we needed, that our caregivers were incapable, that our caregivers couldn't do it. Because that means admitting that even if I become this perfect person that my caregiver wanted me to be, I'm still not going to be safe and secure and everything perfect. Because they can't actually provide that. That is why so many of us are so resistant to accepting that our caregivers harmed us and that we are not just shitty adults making shitty choices. Because it means admitting that our caregivers are imperfect and are never going to be perfect safety for us. That even if we achieve all of these things and become all of these things and fix all of these things, even if our caregivers were to perfectly approve of us, we still wouldn't have perfect safety. We still wouldn't have all of our pain get taken away. Because our caregivers can't give us that, right? That's that really harsh shift from childhood perspective to adult perspective that a lot of us just have a really hard time shifting into, because it means accepting the existential realities of life. We would rather continue to feel like our pain is our fault, and if I just fixed it, everything would be better, and not look into how that is the case, right? Like, why do we believe that? Where does that belief come from? If you were to become your ideal self, why do you believe that would take all of your pain away? Why do you believe that would fix everything? And if we dig deep enough, all of us are going to find it's because then I'm the perfect person that my caregiver wanted me to be. I'm what I think they need me to be so that they will approve of me. I've gotten rid of all of the things that are bad about me. And then I will be perfectly loved, perfectly understood. And then there can be no threat. That's the childhood perspective. So coming into the adult perspective, where it's like, even if I become this perfect version of myself, I get rid of all my coping mechanisms. I have perfectly healthy interpersonal skills. I have the best job. I have the perfect morning routine. I can eat the perfect diet, whatever it is. There's still going to be an existential reality of vulnerability, being a human. That there is no perfect safety. There is no perfect love. There is no guarantee of escaping pain forever and creating perfect. And then we go out into the world and we notice that the world is selling us constantly that perfect reality does exist, that we can have it and we can create it. And they're selling it to us in a plethora of different forms and different ways all the time, right? So in the mainstream culture is selling you, if you become, your ideal body, you work on yourself so you look young forever, you're fit forever, you're taking personal responsibility for yourself, you're on all the supplements, you're eating the perfect diet, you can prevent all disease. You can fix and heal anything that's wrong with your body. You can get rid of the vulnerability of being a human in a human body if you just make all the right choices, right? And then we feel like that gives me a sense of ultimate control. If I just do all these perfect things with my body, number one, I can get rid of all threat of illness and disease and sickness and perfect security. I will have it. And it gives this idea that I'm going to be loved and accepted and approved of, right? I will look how I'm supposed to look, and then everyone will love me and everyone will approve of me, and I'll be safe. It's always these two prongs. It's going to get rid of my vulnerability to the elements, and it's going to make me lovable, because those are the two things that we need to feel safe and secure. So the health and wellness industry says, if you fix your body, you will get rid of all threat, and it will make you lovable. The career world and the boss babes and the money people tell you, if you have the right job, you have the right career, you'll make enough money to be able to afford whatever you need, to buy your way out of any problem, and you will be perceived as successful and good and productive, and therefore you will be loved. So now you get rid of every existential crisis, all of your vulnerability, you have enough money to buy your way out of it. And you're valued, you're loved, you're approved of, you're good enough. Right? If you have all the latest things, you're consuming all the things you should be consuming. You have the latest fashion, you have the latest bag, you have the latest trend in makeup, you have the latest hairstyle, you're constantly on top of everything. Again, you're being distracted into feeling like you're in control of your life. You're being distracted by never-ending changes in what's popular, in trends, in what is in and out. So you constantly feel like you're in control in some way. You're ignoring and being distracted from all of the existential realities of life in order to keep up with all the micro trends and everything that's changing, and getting your hair done and getting your nails done and getting your face done and all the loop and upkeep that this requires. And there's the promise that if you do it, you'll be loved and accepted and approved of. You see? Everything that mainstream culture offers us is this idea that if you do the right things and you make all the right choices and you have all the right things, you consume all the right things, you produce all the right things, you can buy your way out of or earn your way out of all of your vulnerability, and you will be loved. And then spirituality, self-help, and personal growth pretends that it's the opposite of this, right? It likes to sell itself as the anti-mainstream. But if we take a closer look, let's look at some of our spiritual teachings. So some of our spiritual teachers tell us, you just need to learn to accept everything for exactly how it is. Come into a state of perfect acceptance, and you will get rid of all of your pain. So now, instead of trying to control the outer world to get rid of our vulnerability, we're believing, if I just control my inner world enough, if I can just shift my perspective enough, if I can just accept enough and stop judging enough and be on top of my thoughts enough, I can get rid of all of my pain, all of my existential fear, all of my doubt in life, because I can just accept that everything that's happening should be happening and it's all perfect and everything is how it should be. And because it's literally impossible to exist in that state, because it is natural for us that when we are in pain to want to change things. Okay? It is absolutely human nature that when we are in pain, we want to change things. And it is healthy human nature that when we are in pain, we want to change things. It is not actually spiritual to accept things like abuse. It is not actually spiritual to accept pain that we can shift and change. But we're promised this idea that if we can just accept everything for how it is, we will get rid of our pain. Because we're being told that the root of all of our pain is our perception that things are wrong. But the truth is, again, it doesn't matter how much you try and shift your perspective, that when you have your hand on a burner and it's burning and burning and burning and it feels terrible, that's how it should be. And therefore, I should be able to leave it here and not have pain. You're never going to be able to convince yourself enough that that's how it should be, that doesn't hurt. Right? And I would say true spiritual acceptance is when I put my hand on a burner, it hurts for a reason. That is how it should be. It hurts because it's telling me that I'm damaging my tissue. But that doesn't mean I should leave my hand there and just accept that, and then the pain will go away. The pain is going to be there. The pain is going to be there until I take my hand off the burner and until I heal that. Right? Like, the actual acceptance of reality is, so long as I leave my hand there, my hand is being burned and singed and destroyed. And it hurts because I'm losing function in my hand. It's destructive. So my two choices are leave it there and continue to have it be destroyed, or listen to the pain and move my hand away and heal my hand and learn not to put it on the burner anymore. Right? So this idea that if we just shift our minds enough to accept that reality is perfectly perfect how it is, and therefore it shouldn't be painful. The promise is, if you work on yourself enough, you will find perfect security in your mindset. You will be able to get rid of all of your fear and all of your existential crisis and all of your humanity because you accept everything. And now you are escaping and transcending the existential realities of being alive, being in pain, not knowing what to do about it, not always having the answer, not being able to fix it all the time, and being vulnerable. It's an answer to every life problem that you never have to think about. And there's this idea that when I am this transcended person, when I am this spiritual person who can see everything as perfect and blah, 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 I will be loved. I will be accepted. I will be approved of. Okay? Then there's the tantric relationship people who tell you if you just figure out your masculine, feminine polarity and get into this perfect, ideal relationship and work on all of your triggers and heal all your childhood trauma, you will be safe. You will have your perfect partner who's always there for you, someone you can lean on whenever you're scared. You will have this being where you never have to be alone. Everything about the existential reality of being vulnerable will be taken away, and you will have that permanent love you never got from your caregivers. Right? That's the ideal. That you have your twin flame or your soulmate or your perfect person, and you've healed all your childhood trauma together, and now you're just in this perfect union of finally having that unconditional love and acceptance that you always wanted, and this perfect person who's there to just take care of you, to empathize with your needs, to see you, to validate you, to honor you, just like your caregivers never did. Right? Polarity, Tantra, perfect relationship equals perfect life and escape from all pain. Then there's the self-help and the self-improvement world, which is, again, fix yourself. Take responsibility for your life. Anything that's wrong with you, all of your habits that are self-destructive, that's your fault. That's something you're doing wrong. It has nothing to do with your childhood. It has nothing to do with coping mechanism. It has nothing to do with anything that you've been through. That's just a shitty thing about you. A bad thing you decided to do at some point in your life that you need to just stop doing now. And here are all the ways we can help you to stop doing it. Meditation, hypnotherapy, building the perfect morning routine, disciplines, thought work, heal your childhood trauma, blah, 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 all with the underlying assumption that if I fix this bad thing about me, I will become productive. I will become this outgoing person. I will become this better healed version of myself that is now invulnerable to the existential realities of life. Right? Because I'm perfect now. I'm good now. I'm who my parents would approve of. I'm who society would approve of. I'm productive. I'm living up to my potential. I'm expressing myself authentically. I'm no longer people-pleasing or hyper-individualistic or mobilizing all the time or whatever. I've healed myself. And now, nothing can touch me. Nothing can hurt me. I can't be harmed by anything. And this version of me that I'm trying to become by fixing myself all the time is the version of me I truly believe will be loved and accepted and approved of by everybody. I'm going to get rid of all of these things that make it so that people don't like me, that make it so that my caregivers don't like me, that take away all of the things that I truly believe are separating me from the perfect love that I want. And then I will be loved and safe. It's all the same stuff, right? That if you fix yourself enough, if you change yourself enough, if you become your perfect person enough, whatever version of perfection your childhood probably convinced you was perfection, so your body, your spirituality, your relationships, your finances, your personalities, your coping mechanisms, whatever your childhood kind of conditioned you to believe, this is the thing that's separating me from the love of my caregivers, is going to be the thing that we then latch onto as if I fix this about myself, I can get rid of all my existential fear and pain. I can have perfect safety and that love of someone outside of me always being there for me, always providing for me, and rescuing me from my pain. And we never want to admit that our pain might have been caused by our caregivers not caring for us, because that would mean having to accept that even if I become my ideal self, it doesn't take all my pain away. It doesn't make me perfectly safe. It's not going to change the reality that my caregivers couldn't give me the things that I wanted and that I needed, and they never will. We don't want to accept that, because that's losing the hope of perfect safety. We want to keep blaming ourselves forever so that we don't have to let go of the idea that perfect safety is possible if we just fix ourselves enough. But when we do let go of that, right, when we start to see the actual pattern here and how this is all the same stuff, we then have to grapple with the reality that life isn't perfect and it's never going to be perfect. And we can't perfect ourselves enough to take all pain away. We can't perfect ourselves enough to take all vulnerability away. We can't work on ourselves enough to get to a place where we are perfectly safe. Because life is complex. Life is complicated. There are many factors of our life that are out of our control. There are messes that were made in our lives that we didn't make, that we have to clean up. There are mistakes that we have made that we didn't know we were making because we were doing our best at the time, that we have to fix. There's the existential reality of being in a body and literally at any moment, right? Something terrible could happen. That is true. You can have the perfect morning routine and all the supplements and perfect nutrition and perfect sleep and the perfect exercise routine and get hit by a car tomorrow. You cannot protect yourself from everything. Even if you lived in a bubble, a plane could come down on your house. Right? You might have the most ideal career, the best job ever, and you could get fired. The company could go down. Something could happen. You might have a beautiful relationship, love like you've never known, and that person could still decide they want to leave, or they could get sick or pass away, or something happens and you are separated from them. There is no security. Like, not really. There is no perfect security. So this is something that is really difficult to accept, but is actually, in accepting this is the thing that's going to help us move forward with our childhood trauma work. It's the thing that's going to help us move forward with our constant anxiety and trying to fix ourselves and blaming ourselves for everything, and truly believing that if I fix myself enough, I can make everything perfect. When we realize that what we're really afraid of is the fact that life is not secure, and when we can admit that it isn't, we actually set ourselves free. We set ourselves free to, again, stop being in these cycles of constant nitpicking ourselves. We can start to say, okay, when I start to get upset with myself about this habit that I have, or this thing that I'm doing, or I'm judging myself for this thing that I'm not doing, or that my life isn't good enough, or that I'm not, we can start to say, okay, where am I feeling pain? Where am I feeling insecure? Where do I have a need that's not being met? What's actually coming up for me right now that my childhood self just kicked into high gear and said, you're in pain, fix yourself? And then it scapegoated it onto that thing that you always scapegoated onto. Your personality, your coping mechanisms, your interpersonal skills, your lack of career, your body, whatever. Right? And sometimes we can see that the thing we scapegoated onto does cause us pain. There are elements of our body that don't feel good. Our coping mechanisms do have negative backlash. It's a part of our pain. But it's not the whole thing. And fixing it isn't going to make our lives perfectly secure. So we can start to actually get real about what we're scared of. What is causing us pain? And then we can start to look for the power we actually do have. Because this is the real medicine that comes with accepting the existential reality of our human nature. Is when we accept that we don't have perfect control. When we accept that not every pain that we're in is because of us. When we accept that becoming the ideal version of ourselves isn't the answer. We can start to look for, okay, where is the actual pain that I'm experiencing? Is it a thought pattern, a belief system that I'm not safe and this is not okay and I can't be this way? Because we're feeling like we're not getting that perfect love from our caregivers. We're not getting that perfect connection that we really want. And instead of being able to say, I'm just upset that I don't have the loving community, I don't have the love of my caregivers, I don't have the love that I want, and to let ourselves be upset about that, we keep thinking, well, no, if I fix myself enough, I will get it. But it's not going to happen. You're not going to fix yourself enough that your caregivers become perfect. You're not going to fix yourself enough that you have a whole perfect circle of friends who are always there for you. You're not going to fix yourself enough to be worthy of love enough that no one will ever abandon you, and no one will ever dislike you, and no one will ever be mad at you, and no one will ever be upset with you ever again. Rather, we need to work with the reality of that. Right? We need to accept our caregivers failed us. So can we be upset about that? Can we go through the process of having that let down be really hard, and to blame them and be upset with them so we can stop blaming ourselves, and then eventually come into a place of accepting that they're never going to be a perfect love and perfect security for us, and then accepting what they are able to give us, or accepting that maybe they can't give us anything and it's toxic and we need to separate from them, and then looking for other community. Accepting that our friends are never going to be perfectly secure, that our lovers are never going to be perfectly secure. And learning how to make that okay. Because that's the real work. Is to say, okay, how can I enjoy the love that does exist? While also knowing that if it goes away, I can be okay. I can love myself. I can support myself in the ways that I can support myself. I can find other people. These are not the only people that exist. They are not the one source. I can find other connection, and I can be there for myself. Can we accept that our bodies are always going to be vulnerable? We don't have perfect control over them. That we can make all the right choices and do all the right things and still get sick. Because our bodies are complicated. And we live in a complex environment where we do not have control over all of the factors. We have biology that we didn't choose. Genetics we didn't choose. So again, where can we do our best to support our bodies in the ways that we can without blaming ourselves for every little thing that goes wrong, or believing if we have the perfect looking body that we will be perfectly safe, because we won't. We won't be perfectly approved of. We won't be perfectly loved. It won't equal transcendence of all pain if we look thin and beautiful or ripped and muscular or whatever it is that is the trend. We're still going to be vulnerable to rejection, and we're still going to be vulnerable to disease and hurt and harm. So then we can start to say, okay, where is the power I do have? What can I do to support my body? Where can I be on my body's side? How can I take rest when I need it? How can I do all these things? While also accepting that there's going to be some physical pain that I can't change. There's going to be some sickness that I'm never going to get rid of. There might be some problems that happen in my body as I age, and these things happen, and I can't stop it. So how do I accept it? How do I make peace with that? How do I control the things I can control while accepting the things that I can't? How do I find a career or a way of working that supports me enough, that is secure enough, while also understanding it's never going to be perfect. It's never going to be perfectly secure. You can have a job and get fired. You can be an entrepreneur and have no customers. Anything can happen. So it doesn't mean you give up. It doesn't mean you stop working. It doesn't mean you don't try and save some money and do what you can to have healthy habits. but you also accept that you don't have perfect control and things can happen. So the real power is realizing that life is going to happen. Pain is going to happen. Rejection is going to happen. Vulnerability is going to happen. Perfection is not going to be here. And so your power is not in trying to perfect yourself, to get rid of all vulnerability. Your power is in realizing that you can figure things out as you go. That is the adult perspective. That you are never going to have it all figured out. You are never going to perfect yourself. You are never going to be able to make yourself invulnerable to all things. But you are an adult who can figure things out as you go. That is the security we have. The security we have is that we are capable of learning. We are capable of changing. We are capable of adapting. And the question we always ask ourselves when we are in pain is, where is this pain actually coming from? It's not because I'm not good enough. It's not because I'm broken, and it's not because I'm shitty. That's my childhood coping mechanism, trying to earn the perfect love of my caregivers so that they will make me safe forever. That's what that is every time. So investigate. Where is the actual pain? What is the actual need? What is the thing I'm not getting? Where do I feel insecure? Where do I feel alone? Where do I feel pain, harm? My hand is on a burner. And then we look for the things we can control. We look for the things we can shift. I can take my hand off the burner. I can put medicine on it. I can do all the right things to help it heal. It's not going to take the pain away right now. It's not going to make it perfect. And it's not going to make it so that I can just put my hand on any hot surface and not be harmed. Right? But I can learn that putting my hand on a hot surface is going to harm me, and then learn not to do that anymore. What are the things I can control? What am I learning here? When we're looking at our coping mechanisms, how is this helping me? What is this giving me that I don't get any other place? And how can I start to get those needs met in different ways? What is the pain that this is helping distract me from? And how can I slowly process that pain? It's not that I'm just doing some bad thing and need to exert my discipline to make it go away. It's I'm going to need this until I don't. There's a need that this is meeting. And until I have a suitable replacement, I'm going to need this thing. That's how we take personal responsibility for ourselves. Where did my caregivers fuck up? Where were they imperfect? Where did they not meet my needs? Where did they not make me feel good and secure? And how can I process that? How can I start to let myself be upset with them instead of upset with myself? How can I stop projecting my adult perspective onto my child self, right? So just because I can see it now, that caregivers are imperfect, that caregivers didn't get that in their childhood, that it wasn't their fault, that they didn't do it on purpose, doesn't mean it didn't hurt you. Doesn't mean it didn't harm you. And doesn't mean you don't now need to process it and heal from it. And part of processing and healing from it is finally getting upset with them. But then again, that creates that existential crisis of having to admit to yourself that caregivers aren't perfect and never will be, and earning their love and becoming who they wanted you to be isn't going to give you perfect safety. That's hard. Getting upset with them means admitting that you are never going to have perfect safety. That's why so many of us cannot let ourselves get mad at our caregivers. Because it is one and the same thing. To finally let yourself get mad at them and to blame them for how they harmed you and to make the messes that they made in your life their fault, not your fault, means you can't fix yourself enough to make them love you perfectly and take all your pain away. We would rather stay believing it's something wrong with me, because that keeps the hope alive that if I fix and change myself enough, I'm finally going to get that love that I always wanted, and it will take all my pain away, which is usually rooted in I don't believe in myself to be able to figure it out. When we don't have faith that we can figure it out, we are always going to feel like we need to fix and change ourselves so that someone outside of us will love us and do it for us. The real work we need to do is to learn to see ourselves as capable of figuring it out. Because when we can feel like we're capable of figuring it out, then we can start to let go of the hope that our caregivers will love us perfectly and they will figure it out for us. Then we can start to let go of the idea that if I perfect myself, I will be loved by someone outside of me, and then all my vulnerability will go away. That is the real bottom line of what we need, the shift that needs to happen to be able to accept all of this. You are capable of figuring it out. That will set you free. So what if you were to believe that you're capable of figuring it out? What if you were to believe that you are capable of figuring it out? That you will face challenges and eventually figure it out. Okay, I'm in a mode of minimal contact with people because no one is perfectly safe. Really difficult figuring out how to reintegrate contact. Takes so much emotional energy. Absolutely. Because that is the truth. No one will ever be perfectly safe. So again, if you were to believe that you could figure it out, that in each situation with each person, you can learn, is this person good enough? Is it safe enough? Is this something that can be secure enough? Are there conversations that need to be had? Are there compromises that need to be made? Are there requests? Do I need to give more? Do they need to give more? I can figure it out. And to remember that as adults, we're never trapped in a relationship. We can make choices to leave. We can make choices to say no, generally. Like, I understand that there are truly abusive relationships where some of us get really stuck and it is not safe for us to walk away or whatever, and I'm not speaking to that. I'm saying, generally speaking, you're not trapped like you were with your caregivers. In your relationships in your adulthood, you're not stuck with just accepting how it is. You can change things. You can figure things out. You can work things out. That's your power. We don't have to find perfect security when we believe in ourselves that we can figure it out. And figuring it out is just one step at a time. Figuring it out is not having the perfect solution to everything that could ever happen. Figuring it out is realizing that whatever comes up, you can deal with it as it comes up. And yes, you can plan for the future. You can save money. You can eat healthy. You can do these things that are supportive of a good future right? Where you have control. And then knowing that the things that you don't see coming, that you couldn't have predicted, you'll figure it out. The steps you will find your steps as you are present in the moment, dealing with what comes up in the moment. Your power is not in being able to predict everything. Your power is not in being able to control everything. Your power is not in being able to be ahead of everything before it happens. Your power is in learning that you can figure it out as you go. That is the actual root answer to all of this insecurity. Accepting that there will be some pain we can't control. And having some tools to help us work through that emotionally. That's where a lot of our spirituality and self-help lets us down. Is there's no validation and acknowledgement that life contains pain. And sometimes we can't fix it. And what we need in those moments is validation and love and support. And then what we can figure out and what we can change is within our power. We can learn from the situation as we're in it. We don't have to know beforehand. We can figure it out as we go. Those two things. Tools for working through the pain we can't control. Validation, love, approval, acceptance, love, and then problem-solving skills. Working with the present moment. Working with pain and pleasure. Observing what works, observing what doesn't. Looking for just your next step. All of these things that we talk about here. That is your power. Perfect security will never exist, but you can process pain you can't deal with, as in change, and you can problem solve and figure things out as you go. That is your power. Okay? Perfect security doesn't exist. Perfect love will never exist. But you can figure things out. That's the reality. That's where your security is. Okay? One step at a time. All right. That's all we have for today. Thank you for being here. Thank you for acknowledging reality with me. You can figure it out. One step at a time. You are an adult, and you are capable. And you are valid in all of your pain, and there's nothing wrong with you. You're not going to fix yourself enough to have a secure life. But you can figure things out, and that is your power. Okay? Okay. I love you. I hope you have a good day, week, month, whenever I see you again. And until then,